I still remember the way the morning light crept through the curtains that day. It painted the bedroom in soft gold, making everything look deceptively peaceful. I was half awake, listening to the faint sounds of birds outside, when I felt Lorna shift beside me. I turned, expecting a sleepy smile or maybe a drowsy good morning. But what I got instead was a deep, heavy sigh, the kind that wasn't just exhaustion. It was something else, something I didn't recognize at the time. She sat up, her back to me, shoulders tense. I reached out instinctively, brushing my fingers against her arm. "You okay?" I murmured, still caught in that hazy space between sleep and wakefulness. She hesitated for a long time before answering, "I need to talk to you." Right then and there, my stomach dropped. It was in her voice. Something final, something that didn't belong to the woman I thought I knew. "All right?" I said, pushing myself upright, suddenly more awake than I wanted to be. "What's wrong?" Lorna didn't look at me when she spoke. Her fingers twisted in the sheets, gripping the fabric as if it was the only thing tethering her. "I don't think I can do this anymore." A chill crawled up my spine. "Do what?" I asked, though I already knew I wasn't going to like the answer. She inhaled sharply. This marriage. I feel like I'm suffocating, and I need to be free." There it was, the words that shattered everything. I just stared at her, my heartbeat roaring in my ears. Free, as if this life we built together, this home, the years of love, the memories, was a cage. "Lorna," I said, my voice barely above a whisper, "where is this coming from?" She finally turned to face me, and for the first time in a long time, I saw something I couldn't quite place in her eyes. Guilt, maybe, but there was something else there, something colder. "I just need space," she said, "to figure out who I am again." My jaw clenched. "Figure out who you are?" "Lorna, we've been married for 10 years. And maybe that's the problem." The words hit harder than I expected. I felt like I'd been winded, like she'd just punched the air from my lungs. This was my wife, the woman who used to fall asleep with her head on my chest, who once told me that I was her home. And now, suddenly, I was the problem. Is there someone else?" The words burned coming out. She flinched, and for a split second, I saw something flicker in her expression. But then she shook her head. "No, this isn't about anyone else. It's about me." I wanted to believe her, I really did. "So, what does this mean?" I asked, my voice steady despite the storm raging inside me. Lorna exhaled, rubbing her temples. "I think we need time apart." That was it, the moment that everything changed. I should have argued, should have fought for her, but something in me knew that whatever had been broken, it wasn't something I could fix alone. So I did the only thing I could do. I let her go. What I didn't know was that letting her go was just the beginning, because the moment I moved on, she came crawling back. And by then, I wasn't the same man she left behind. The day Lorna left, I told myself I wouldn't beg. I watched as she packed her bags. 2 suitcases and a duffel. The same ones we'd taken on our honeymoon all those years ago. The irony stung. I stood in the doorway of our bedroom, arms crossed, my chest tight with something that felt dangerously close to grief. But I didn't stop her. I wanted to, God, I wanted to. Instead, I just asked, "Are you sure?" She didn't answer right away. She zipped up the last suitcase, exhaled, and finally met my gaze. There was no hesitation in her eyes. That hurt more than I wanted to admit. Yes, that single word felt like a knife to the ribs. She walked past me without looking back. I followed her to the front door, where she hesitated for a moment as if expecting me to stop her. When I didn't, she lifted her chin, pulled open the door, and stepped out into the cool evening air. And just like that, she was gone. I stood in the doorway for a long time after her car disappeared down the street. The silence in the house was suffocating. I closed the door, walked to the kitchen, and poured myself a glass of whiskey with a hand that wasn't as steady as I wanted it to be. I told myself this was for the best. If she wanted to find herself, then fine, let her. I wasn't going to grovel. I wasn't going to chase after someone who saw me as the problem instead of the person who had loved her unconditionally for a decade. But that first night alone was brutal. I sat on the couch staring at the darkened TV screen, my reflection staring back at me. I barely recognized myself. The house felt unfamiliar, too quiet, too empty, like it had been stripped of something vital. I reached for my phone more times than I cared to admit. I wanted to text her, to call her, to ask if she really meant it, if she'd changed her mind. But I didn't. Instead, I did something I hadn't done in years. I let myself feel everything. The anger, the confusion, the unbearable sadness of knowing that the woman I'd built a life with had decided I wasn't enough anymore. I didn't sleep that night. The reality of being free. Days turned into weeks. I went through the motions: work, gym, dinner, bed, rinse and repeat. I convinced myself I was fine until I wasn't. The first time I saw her after she left, it wasn't planned. I was grabbing coffee at our usual spot out of habit, not sentimentality, when I heard her voice behind me. I turned around, and there she was. Lorna looked different. Not in a bad way, just different. Lighter, maybe. Her hair was curled, her makeup perfect, her smile bright. But it wasn't for me. It was for the man standing next to her. I recognized him immediately. Adam Reynolds, an old coworker of hers, a guy she'd always referred to as just a friend. That phrase hit me like a gut punch. She saw me. Her expression flickered. Guilt, surprise, something unreadable. But it was gone just as fast. She didn't introduce him. She didn't have to. I nodded at her, played it cool, and walked out. That was the moment I knew. Lorna hadn't left to find herself. She'd left to be with someone else. I'd been so damn careful not to assume, not to accuse her of cheating when she first told me she needed space. But the truth was staring me right in the face now, and it made me feel like a fool. I was done grieving. I was done waiting for answers that didn't matter anymore. So I did the one thing she never expected. I moved on. A new beginning. It didn't happen overnight, but something in me shifted after that. I started saying yes to things I'd put off for years. Trips, new hobbies, nights out with friends. I reconnected with people. I focused on myself. And then I met Sophia. She wasn't a rebound. She wasn't a distraction. She was everything Lorna wasn't. Genuine, kind, someone who actually saw me. For the first time in months, I felt alive again. I didn't think about Lorna anymore, at least not in the way I used to. She was part of my past, a chapter that had already been written. Or so I thought, because 3 months later, my phone rang at 2 a.m., and when I answered, all I heard was the sound of Lorna crying. The moment I heard Lorna's voice, thick with tears, my stomach twisted in a way I didn't expect. I had spent the last few months stitching myself back together, convincing myself that I was over her, that she was just a chapter in my past. And yet, here she was crying. I sat up in bed, rubbing a hand over my face. Sophia stirred beside me, mumbling something incoherent before turning over. I lowered my voice. Lorna? A shaky breath on the other end. I didn't know who else to call. That hit me harder than it should have. Not Adam. Not the guy she left me for. I stayed silent, waiting. She sniffled. I made a mistake, Ethan. That name, my name, it sounded foreign coming from her, like it belonged to a version of me that didn't exist anymore. I exhaled slowly, leaning back against the headboard. Lorna, it's late. She ignored that. I don't know what I was thinking. I thought I needed space. But she broke off, her breathing uneven. I ruined everything, didn't I? I wanted to be angry. I wanted to tell her that yes, she did ruin everything, that she made her choice and I had finally made mine. But the part of me that once loved her, the part that once considered her my best friend, felt something else. Not sympathy, exactly, but something close. What happened? I asked against my better judgment. A long pause. Then, Adam isn't who I thought he was. There it was. I could have laughed, but it wasn't funny. What do you want from me, Lorna? I don't know, she admitted. I miss you. And for the first time in months, I felt absolutely nothing. No longing, no pain, no urge to comfort her. I had moved on. I ran a hand through my hair, glancing at Sophia, peacefully asleep beside me. This was my reality now, a future I was building with someone who actually wanted to be here. I made my choice too. Go get some sleep, Lorna, I said, my voice calm. It's not my job to fix this for you anymore. I hung up before she could say another word. And just like that, I closed the door on my past. Unfinished business. I wish that had been the end of it, but Lorna wasn't done. Over the next few weeks, she found every excuse to reach out. Texts about random things she had left behind, emails asking if we could meet for coffee, even a message on my birthday that felt too personal, considering she had chosen to leave me. I ignored most of it until one night when I walked into my favorite bar with Sophia and there she was, waiting. She looked different. Not in the way she had before, with her perfect hair and her bright smiles meant for someone else. This was different. Her makeup was smudged, her eyes hollow. Ethan, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Sophia glanced at me, then at Lorna, her expression unreadable. Do you two need to talk? Sophia asked, ever the understanding one. I didn't. I knew I didn't. But Lorna's presence felt like an unanswered question. So I nodded. I'll be right back, I told Sophia, kissing her temple before following Lorna outside. The night air was crisp. Lorna wrapped her arms around herself, looking down at the sidewalk. I don't know where to start, she admitted. Then don't, I said simply. Her head snapped up. Ethan, please. I need you to understand. I sighed. Understand what, Lorna? That you left? That you chose someone else? That now that it's fallen apart, you suddenly remember what we had? She flinched but didn't argue. I thought I was missing out on something, she finally said, her voice breaking. I thought there was more, but all I found was regret. I let her words hang between us. She stepped closer, searching my face. Do you think there's any chance we could? No. I didn't even let her finish because I meant it. I had grieved her once. I had picked up the pieces of my life and built something new, something real. And I wasn't about to let her destroy that, too. Her eyes filled with tears, but this time, I didn't feel the urge to wipe them away. I loved you, Lorna, I said, but that's not enough anymore. And with that, I turned and walked back inside, to my future, to Sophia, to the life I finally chose for myself. Lorna made her choice, and now, for the first time, I was making mine. The next morning, I woke up to the sound of my phone vibrating on the nightstand. I blinked against the early sunlight streaming through the blinds, my body still heavy with sleep. Sophia was curled up beside me, her slow, even breathing a steady reminder of everything I had now. A life beyond Lorna. I almost ignored the call, but something in me, maybe curiosity, maybe closure, made me glance at the screen. Lorna. I stared at the name for a long moment before silencing the call. Minutes later, a text came through. Please, just talk to me. I placed the phone back down and exhaled slowly. I didn't know her anything, but I knew Lorna, and I knew she wasn't going to stop until she said whatever it was she was desperate to get out. By the time I got out of bed, showered, and made breakfast, my phone had buzzed 3 more times, all from her. I didn't read the messages. I didn't need to. I was done being the man she turned to when everything else fell apart. Later that afternoon, I was sitting outside a cafe scrolling through emails when I heard someone clear their throat. I looked up and there she was, Lorna. She was standing across from me, arms crossed, looking both hesitant and determined. I know you don't want to talk to me, she said before I could even open my mouth, but I need you to hear me out. I set my phone down, studying her. She looked different, not in a way that made me second-guess everything, but in a way that told me she had finally seen the consequences of her own choices. You left me, Lorna, I said, keeping my voice even. What is there to talk about? Her eyes flashed with something close to regret. I was wrong. I leaned back in my chair, letting out a slow breath. Yeah, you were. She shifted on her feet, clearly expecting me to say more. When I didn't, she dropped into the seat across from me, running a hand through her hair. I need to explain, she said. I shook my head. No, you don't. You already did when you packed your bags and walked out. I thought I was missing out on something, she admitted. I thought being with Adam was going to be I don't know, exciting, different. I thought maybe I had settled too soon, that maybe there was this whole life out there that I never got to experience because I married young. I kept my expression neutral, but inside I felt a quiet sort of disgust. You thought our marriage was just settling? I asked, my voice calm despite the weight of her words. She hesitated. I didn't mean it like that. But that's exactly what you did, isn't it? I interrupted. You convinced yourself that there was something better out there, that I was holding you back from some grand adventure. And when you realized it wasn't what you expected, you came running back. Her lips parted slightly as if she hadn't considered it from that angle. I wasn't angry anymore, not in the way I used to be. I had already lived through the worst of it. The betrayal, the sleepless nights, the emptiness she left behind. But I wasn't the same man she left. I hurt you, she whispered. I let out a humorless laugh. Yeah, Lorna, you did. She looked down at her hands, and for the first time, I saw something real in her. Not just regret, not just guilt, but something deeper. You were the best thing that ever happened to me, she said softly, and I threw it away. Silence stretched between us. I could have told her she was right, that she made her bed and now she had to lie in it, that I had moved on. But I didn't need to because she already knew. You need to let me go, I finally said. Her breath hitched, but she nodded. I know. And that was it. No grand speeches, no desperate attempts to fix what was already broken. Just the quiet understanding that some things can't be undone. As I stood up, ready to leave, she reached out, her fingers grazing my wrist. Ethan, she murmured, do you ever think about us? About what we had? I met her gaze, steady and unshaken. I used to, I admitted, but not anymore. And then, without another word, I walked away. For the first time since she left me, I felt completely free. The weight of the conversation with Lorna stayed with me longer than I expected. Not in the way it once would have, where my chest felt heavy, where I replayed every word in my head searching for what I could have done differently. No, this was different. It was clarity, the kind of realization that made me see the past exactly for what it was. No filters, no romanticized memories. I had moved on. And yet, that didn't stop Lorna from lingering in the background of my life like a ghost that refused to fade. I told Sophia about the cafe meeting that night. She listened carefully, her expression unreadable as she sipped her wine. And how do you feel about it? She finally asked. I don't know, I admitted, rubbing a hand over my jaw. I thought it would feel satisfying. I guess, watching her realize she made the biggest mistake of her life. Sophia tilted her head slightly, studying me. But, I let out a breath. But it just feels like it's over. And I don't think I ever needed revenge or for her to grovel. I just needed to see it for myself. Sophia smiled slightly, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. Then I'd say you got what you needed. She was right. But Lorna, she wasn't done. It started with small things. A message here and there, a like on an old photo. Then a direct message on social media that I ignored. Then one night she showed up. I was coming home late from work. Sophia was already inside making dinner, her soft humming drifting through the apartment. It was the kind of normal, peaceful life I had never known I wanted until now. And then I saw her standing by the elevator. Lorna. My stomach clenched, but not in the way it once had. There was no longing, no ache, just exhaustion. She looked nervous, biting her lip like she was unsure if she should even be here. She shouldn't. How do you know where I live? I asked, keeping my voice even. She swallowed hard. I asked around. I exhaled sharply, already done with this. Lorna, this is inappropriate. Please, she whispered. Just give me 5 minutes. I considered just walking past her, shutting the door in her face, but some part of me wanted this to end, once and for all. So, I crossed my arms and waited. She hesitated before speaking. I know I shouldn't be here, but I just needed to see you. I raised an eyebrow. And why is that? Her eyes filled with something dangerously close to desperation. Because I can't stop thinking about you, about us. I sighed. Lorna, I told you, No, just listen. She stepped closer, her voice urgent. I left because I thought I needed more, that maybe I was missing out on something. But the truth is, I was just scared. I was scared of how much I loved you, how stable and predictable you were. I thought that meant I wasn't living. She exhaled sharply, her shoulders shaking. But I was wrong. Adam, he wasn't you. He was never going to be you. And I hate myself for walking away from the best thing that ever happened to me. There was a time when those words would have broken me, when I would have dropped everything just to fix what was shattered. But that time was gone. I shook my head, my voice firm but calm. Lorna, I'm not the same man you left. She let out a trembling breath. I can see that. I'm happy now, I continued, keeping my tone even. And I don't need to revisit the past to know that it's over. Tears welled in her eyes, but I wasn't going to rescue her this time. Please, she whispered. Just tell me there's a chance. I looked at her, really looked at her, and realized she was chasing a ghost. She wanted the version of me who had once waited for her, who had spent sleepless nights wondering what he had done wrong, who had still believed that love alone could fix everything. But that man was gone. I stepped back, shaking my head. There isn't, Lorna. She made a sound, a broken, quiet sob, but I didn't waver. And then I turned and walked inside, shutting the door behind me. Sophia looked up as I entered, her gaze searching mine. Everything okay? I smiled. Yeah, it finally is. And for the first time in a long time, I meant it. I didn't think much about Lorna after that night, not in the way she probably hoped I would. The moment I shut that door, something inside me settled. Finality. It was like all the weight I had been carrying since she left had finally lifted, and for the first time in a long time I wasn't looking back. But Lorna, she wasn't done looking back. The next morning, my phone buzzed with a new message. I expected it to be from work or maybe even Sophia, but instead, her name lit up my screen. Lorna, I'm sorry about last night. I shouldn't have come. I should have ignored it. I had already said everything that needed to be said. But a part of me, maybe out of habit, typed back a simple response. Me, you're right, you shouldn't have. I left it at that. No opening for conversation. No room for more apologies. Just the truth. I thought that was the end of it. It wasn't. The next week, Sophia and I were out at a new restaurant downtown, enjoying a quiet dinner. The conversation was easy, the food was good, and for the first time in forever, my life felt normal. Then, from the corner of my eye, I saw her. Lorna. She wasn't alone. She was sitting at the bar with a friend, swirling a drink in her hand, but her eyes, they were on me. I sighed, running a hand down my face. I didn't know if it was just a coincidence or if she had been showing up to places I frequented on purpose. Either way, I wasn't about to let it ruin my night. Everything okay? Sophia asked, sensing my shift in mood. Yeah, I said, forcing a smile. Let's just focus on dinner. And that's exactly what I did. I ignored Lorna. I didn't look in her direction again, didn't acknowledge her presence, didn't give her the reaction she was probably hoping for. But even as I pretended not to notice, I could feel her watching me. The next day, I got another text. Lorna, I saw you last night. You look happy. I stared at the message for a long moment before locking my phone and tossing it onto the table. I wasn't playing this game with her. But Lorna, she wasn't ready to give up. A few days later, I got a call from an unknown number. I answered out of habit, only to hear her voice on the other end. I miss you, she said softly. I sighed, pinching the bridge of my nose. Lorna, just let me say this, please. Her voice was desperate, like a last-ditch attempt to make me listen. I should have hung up, but I didn't. I was selfish, she admitted. I thought leaving you was what I needed to be happy, but I was wrong. I thought Adam was some kind of missing piece in my life, but all he did was show me what I already had with you. And I threw it all away. I leaned back in my chair, staring at the ceiling. Yeah, you did. A beat of silence. I know I can't change the past, she whispered. But if I asked for another chance, would you even consider it? I closed my eyes. I could have said a lot of things. I could have reminded her of how she left me, how she never looked back until she was the one who lost everything. But in the end, I only said one thing: no. I heard her breath hitch, but I didn't let her speak. I've moved on, Lorna, I said simply. And you should too. Then I ended the call. I expected to feel something after that: relief, sadness, regret, but all I felt was peace. That night, as Sophia curled up against me on the couch, I looked down at her, at the woman who had been patient, kind, and everything Lorna wasn't, and I knew without a doubt that I had made the right choice. I thought that would be the last time I ever heard from Lorna. I truly believed that after shutting her down completely, after making it painfully clear that there was no second chance, she would finally accept it, that she would move on just like I had. I underestimated her. It started small. A message here and there, then a voicemail that I deleted before even listening. I told myself she would stop eventually, that she just needed time to let it sink in. But then one night she crossed the line. It was late, almost midnight, when a knock sounded at my apartment door. Sophia and I had just gotten back from dinner, both of us exhausted from a long day. She was in the bathroom washing up when I went to answer it. And there she was, Lorna. Her hair was a mess, her makeup smudged. She looked like she hadn't slept in days. But it was her eyes that caught me off guard, because for the first time since she came back into my life, I saw something new in them: desperation. I exhaled sharply, already feeling the exhaustion seep into my bones. "What are you doing here, Lorna?" She swallowed hard. "I needed to see you." I ran a hand down my face. "We already talked. There's nothing left to say." "Please," she whispered. "Just 5 minutes. That's all I'm asking." I hesitated, not because I wanted to let her in, but because I knew she wouldn't leave until she got whatever it was she came here for. I stepped outside, shutting the door behind me. "Make it quick." Her breath hitched, as if she wasn't expecting me to be so direct. But then she nodded, glancing down at her hands before speaking. "I don't know who I am without you," she admitted. "I thought I was making the right choice when I left, but it was like walking into a nightmare. I kept waiting for things to feel better, for that excitement I thought I was missing to finally make sense, but it never did." I crossed my arms, unmoved. "That's not my problem anymore." She winced. "I know, but..." She looked up at me, pleading. "Do you still love me?" I blinked. The audacity. "Are you serious?" I asked, my voice colder than I expected. Her lower lip trembled. "I just need to know. If you told me you still loved me, even a little, maybe..." "Maybe what?" I snapped, cutting her off. "You think if I say yes, you can just waltz back into my life like nothing happened?" Tears welled in her eyes, but I didn't care. I stepped closer, lowering my voice. "You left me, Lorna. You tore apart everything we built because you thought there was something better out there. And now, because your little fantasy didn't work out, you expect me to be waiting for you?" She shook her head rapidly. "No, it's not like that." "But it is like that," I said firmly. "You made your choice and I made mine. I'm happy now, and I'm not going to let you ruin that." She opened her mouth, but I didn't let her speak. "You don't love me, Lorna," I continued, my voice steady. "You love the idea of me. You love the fact that I was safe, that I was always going to be there. But you don't get to have me back just because you finally realize what you lost." A sob tore through her, and for the first time, I saw her walls crumble. But I didn't comfort her. I didn't reach for her. I didn't do any of the things I would have done before. Instead, I turned and walked back to my apartment. Before stepping inside, I glanced over my shoulder one last time. "Don't come here again, Lorna. We're done." Then I closed the door. Sophia was standing in the hallway, arms crossed, watching me carefully. "Is she finally out of your system?" she asked. I met her gaze, my chest lighter than it had ever been. "Yeah," I said. "She is." And for the first time since Lorna walked out of my life, I felt completely free. Lorna never showed up again after that night. No more messages, no more phone calls, no more desperate attempts to cling to something that had died a long time ago. It was as if, finally, she understood we were over, and I had never felt lighter. For months, she had been this lingering shadow in my life, a reminder of the betrayal, the heartbreak, the nights I spent wondering what I did wrong. But as I closed the door on her for the last time, it wasn't just about moving on. It was about choosing myself. I wasn't the man she left behind anymore. I had grown. I had built a life that had nothing to do with her, and for the first time I saw it clearly. A few weeks later, Sophia and I took a weekend trip to a small cabin in the mountains. No phones, no distractions, just us, the crisp autumn air, and a fire crackling in the background. As we sat on the porch watching the sunset over the trees, "Can I ask you something?" Sophia said, her voice soft. I turned to her, taking in the way the golden light made her eyes look like honey. "Of course." She hesitated, then smiled. "Do you ever think about what would have happened if Lorna never left?" I considered that for a moment. The old me, the one who spent months drowning in heartbreak, would have obsessed over that question, would have analyzed every choice, every mistake, every little moment that could have changed things. But not anymore. "No," I said simply. "Because if she never left, I wouldn't be here with you." Sophia smiled, and damn, it did something to me. She reached for my hand, intertwining our fingers. "I'm glad you see it that way." I squeezed her hand gently, letting out a deep breath. I spent so long thinking that losing her was the worst thing that ever happened to me. But the truth is, I looked at her, feeling something warm settle in my chest. It was the best thing, because it led me to this. To you. She didn't say anything, just leaned in and kissed me. Slow and deep, like she already knew. And maybe for the first time in my life I knew too. Lorna was my past. Sophia was my future. And I was finally ready to live it.